Welcome everybody to the Digital Nomad Experts podcast by Commute. Today I'm very excited because we have a special guest. Michael Kim is joining us, who is a personal finance coach and was also a CPA and a digital nomad. Previously worked as a consultant for Deloitte and was a financial analyst for Finance It. So Michael, thank you so much for joining us today, and hello.
Thank you for having me here, Jeff. Excited to be here and to chat.
Yeah, so today we're actually going to talk about some budgeting secrets for digital nomads. You've got a lot to talk about in this area, but I do want this to be a little bit of a getting to know. I kind of want to learn a little bit more about your path, both as becoming a digital nomad. I think you're maybe one of just a few finance coach / CPAs that I've met in my travels. So if you don't mind, just maybe introduce yourself to the audience, who Michael Kim is as a person.
My name is Michael Kim. I'm a personal finance coach, CPA, digital nomad, and also TEDx speaker recently. And I am essentially a personal finance coach who helps young professionals have control over their money and their lives. So I talk from everything of how to make money, how to save money, and how to invest it. So anything related to money, I am your guy.
Let me back up a little bit here. How do you get on TEDx? I've never met anybody that's been on TEDx before. So you're kind of like a micro celebrity in my mind. So what was that like?
So it was while I was in Mexico, there was these applications about, we're extending the deadline. It was a TEDx affiliated with a university in Toronto. So I essentially reached out and they're like, yeah, you should apply. And then I was like, okay. So I applied, did some interviews, and I literally just did my TEDx talk last Saturday. So like a few days ago. Yeah, it's really, really fresh. So, and it was such a great experience. I'm so used to do everything virtual, right? Because we're digital nomads. I started my business during COVID in 2020. So this was like my first in-person event with like an audience of like 100 to 200 people. So it was a good amount of people.
How were your nerves?
My nerves were it actually helped because I think I was actually prepared for the talk. So the nerves actually made me more energetic and more emotive during the presentation. Yeah. And my friend who I rehearsed a lot with, he was like, yeah, you actually did better in your talk, like your in-person talk, than like during the rehearsal. So I'm like, incredible. That's a good sign.
Is that up on YouTube that we can share to the audience, or is it still getting processed?
It's still getting edited and it has to be like approved by the official TED people. So it will be a few months before it comes out. But I'll definitely let you know when it's out.
Yeah, shoot it over once that thing's up. Okay, so let me back up a little bit. You're working at Deloitte and you're working at Finance It. Were those in person in the office jobs?
Yes, they were.
Okay. How did you transition over to becoming a digital nomad from there's a lot to this, right? Working at Deloitte is a prestigious company, well known, high paying. It's like kind of a dream for a lot of people. You transitioned away from that. Was it because you wanted to travel and be a digital nomad?
Yes. So in 2015, growing up, I never really traveled that much, to be honest, because my family, we weren't that financially great. We couldn't really afford to travel. I've never been to Asia before. I never went to Europe as a kid. So the only place that I would travel to is like other places in Canada or like the US. So growing up, I never really traveled. But then 2015, I went to Poland on an exchange to Poland, teaching English. And from that experience, I caught the travel bug. I was like, oh my God, traveling is amazing. I want to travel the world because you get to meet so many people. It's so great to see a completely different perspective. And so from 2015, I was like, okay, I really want to travel. But then at the same time, at university, I was studying accounting and finance. And back then, accounting and finance jobs were not really remote. Most of them were in person. You have to be in office all the time. So I graduated university in 2019, started working at Deloitte. And yeah, Deloitte's a very prestigious company, but it was never an end goal for me. It was always, I want to find a way that I can work remotely and that I can travel and achieve my dreams of being able to travel the world. So while I was working at Deloitte in 2019, 2020, I also decided to start my side business, which is my personal finance coaching business on the side. So I was working Deloitte while working my personal finance coaching business, coaching people on the side, and trying to, at the time, my only thought was like, okay, I need to start a business so I can work remotely, or a business that allows me to work remotely. So that was kind of my path to starting my journey as a digital nomad.
So your origin story was basically a trip to Poland.
Yeah, it was life-changing. It was like in the most randomest place. It was Rzeszów, Poland. It's like south of, about like 2 hours south of Warsaw. And people always ask me like, why did you choose Poland? Like, that's so random. And it's because I had no idea of what Europe was. I literally, because I never been to Europe. I never traveled outside of Canada or the US. So I literally just saw like a random like large landmass as Europe. And I was like, what's the difference between Italy and Poland? Like, I don't really know. So I'll just go to Poland because...
Throw a dart at the map and it landed.
Literally, that's what happened. And it was such a random town and it was very quiet, but it was very beautiful.
So how long did it take for you to build up this? It was a side project that you're working on while working full-time. And then you transitioned into your side project is now your full-time project. What went into that process and how long did that take you?
So it did take quite a few years. So I started in 2020 and then I officially became a digital nomad in 2023. So 2023, about April time, I decided to quit my full-time job and then went full-time in my business. So it did take quite a few years in order to get to the place where I'm able to go full-time. But the journey is definitely like a roller coaster. It wasn't like, linear, like slowly growing the business as most entrepreneurs know. In the beginning of 2020, I actually was quite successful in the start of my business. I hired a business coach in the beginning of my business, which really helped me to market and sell my business as a coaching service. So I was able to I wouldn't say match my full-time income, but I was able to make maybe about like 50% of my full-time income from my side business. Yeah, which is a pretty good start in the first year. So for the first 2 years, I was like slowly growing the business at the same time as building up my personal finances, right? Because with the business, it's like, yes, income is important, but then I also wanted a certain size of investment portfolio and like things like an emergency fund. And my investment portfolio, my goal was to achieve a $100,000 investment portfolio before I quit. So I was focusing on building my business income as well as my personal finances. And it did take me quite a few years in order to get to that point of 2023 where I was able to just say, okay, I think everything's ready. Even though I'm not ready, like mentally, I'm going to quit and go full time.
Yeah. Did you write off your lease, pack your bags, and hit the road full time, or do you still part time at home?
So I still part time at home. So I live in Toronto, Canada, and I throughout those years of 2020 to 2023, I was living at home. So that really helped me to save money and to build up my funds because I'm sure, are you from the US, Jeff?
I am, yeah, California.
Yeah. Like rent is one of the biggest expenses. So rent in Toronto is like around like $2,000, like at least.
Yeah.
Every single month. So that is a large chunk of money that I was able to save by putting it into investments and growing it. So yeah, that's essentially. Oh, so my current travel pattern right now is that sometimes I stay at home for about like 2 to 3 months. And then I go traveling for like 4 to 5 months or so.
It's about the schedule that I'm on as well. I think that's actually a good segue. We want to talk about budgeting secrets. Some of the top podcasts that we've had on the Digital Nomad Experts podcast are where to live for under $1,000, where to live for under $2,000. And there's a lot of confusion in this area of budgeting, and it seems to be a huge blocker for a lot of people, preventing them from becoming digital nomads because they assume it's going to be more expensive. I think a lot of people, I'm just guessing, a lot of people look at digital nomad living as traveling through the same lens that they would if going on vacation. Vacation's very expensive. Typically, you're going to Western Europe, you're going to all-inclusive resorts, you're flying to expensive places, and there's like a little bit of a disconnect there. So help me out in explaining like what kind of expenses should somebody expect when they start living as a digital nomad?
When it comes to expenses specifically, when I'm planning a trip to go somewhere like Southeast Asia or to Mexico, I always want to plan my expenses beforehand. And that really helps me to get a grasp of approximately how much money I will be spending and how much money I can save. Because at the end of the day, as digital nomads, we're doing this not because we have to, we're doing it because we want to, and we want to enjoy our experience there. We want to be able to enjoy all of the experiences that we can in that certain area that we're visiting. But at the same time, we still want to be conscious and aware of how much money we're saving so that we can achieve our future financial goals. It's not just like enjoying life now and then we'll worry about our problems later, which is what I think a lot of people end up doing. It's how can I enjoy as much as I can today while saving money for the future?
There seems to be a belief amongst a lot of people that it's actually more expensive to live as a digital nomad. Do you find that to be true?
I honestly don't think so. Coming from a place that is pretty expensive, like Canada, where taxes are extremely high, rent and real estate prices are skyrocketing, it honestly doesn't make that much sense in order to stay in a country unless you have like specific ties where it's like you have to stay in that country because of your job, or you have, family ties. But there's something called geographic arbitrage, where it's when you travel somewhere where it's lower cost of living. So you're still making money in your country where you get paid the same amount, but then you go to another country that's a lot lower cost of living, and it really helps you to even save money. There are people who are able to save so much more money by living somewhere else that's cheaper, and then they are able to achieve their financial goals so much more faster than someone that were to stay in their original country.
I can relate to that. Coming from the San Francisco Bay Area, the second I take a step outside of that bubble, I'm immediately getting a cost of living adjustment. Like I'm getting a raise no matter where I go. So yeah, I definitely see that. For some people that might be just starting in on the lifestyle and they might be really budget conscious, are there any locations that you would recommend to people for maybe like very first places that they would go to as digital nomads, where they could save their money and maybe even retain their money or save their money?
Well, I just want to say that I am a pretty new nomad. So I started in 2023 and right now it's 2024. So I haven't done too much traveling yet. I am doing a lot of traveling in 2024, which is I'm really excited for. But in 2023, I went to Mexico. I was primarily in Puerto Escondido. And the rent there, you can probably get something for $500 to $600 per month, like your own place. And that's like pretty good if really good. Like compared to compared to like somewhere in Toronto where you're paying $2,000, that you're already saving $1,500. Yeah. So that is a pretty good deal. I'm also right now going to Southeast Asia next week. So I'm really excited for that. Exactly. Well, not in Singapore. I am going to Singapore. If you're trying to go on a budget, don't go to Singapore because it's quite expensive. But I'm staying in Vietnam for about 2 months. And Vietnam is definitely a really, really affordable place. Not only the rent, but also the food and all of the activities. Vietnam is a lot cheaper than I would say even Thailand. And I think like Bali and I think Indonesia and Vietnam are probably one of the cheapest. And Philippines are probably one of the cheapest in Southeast Asia.
Okay, so some recommendations. These are echoing a lot of the things that we've said. Yeah, we've been to a lot of affordable and not affordable places, and typically those that make top marks are Bali, Thailand, Vietnam, and I've also spent quite a bit of time in Mexico. for that reason, amongst various other reasons. So yeah, that completely jives with me. Let's get into some more, like, do you have any practical tips for people for like creating and actually sticking to a budget once they're amidst the chaos of traveling as a digital nomad?
So I would say the first thing that you need to do is that you need to create a financial plan. As I was saying before, is that you want to have a balance between spending money and enjoying life today while saving money for your future so that you can enjoy your future, essentially. And a financial plan is really a GPS that tells you how to get from your point A to point B. It tells you the exact steps. So your point A is your net worth, which is your current financial situation. And then your point B are your financial goals. So when you create a financial plan, you're trying to figure out, how do I get from point A, which is where I currently am, to the financial goals that I have in the future? And this will really tell you how much money you should be saving every single month and year so that you can achieve the goals that you want. And the really powerful thing about this is that a lot of people have anxiety when they're digital nomad, or even if you're just working a regular 9-to-5 job. They're like, oh, I'm not saving enough. I need to save more money. Are you? Are you saving enough, or are you not saving enough? And so your financial plan will actually tell you, okay, Jeff, if you save $1,000 per month, you will be able to achieve all of your financial goals. So then when you're saving money and you're able to save $1,000, you know that you are saving enough to achieve your goals. And all of the other money you can spend on enjoying life and on things that you want to spend on.
So it is kind of a more simple equation. I came into this question completely blind. At 39 years old, that's kind of embarrassing. But just assuming it was going to be a complex equation. But really what you're saying is point B is the amount of money that you want to have saved. And then point A is right now. And you just basically try to come in underneath that number every month, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that really helps you to just enjoy life, because you don't have to worry about, oh, I'm not saving enough, or I'm spending too much money. As digital nomads, this is like such a once in a lifetime experience and such an opportunity that we're living. And so you want to make the most out of it.
How do you come up with that point B number?
It's very simple. So you just list out all of the financial goals that you want. For example, buying a house, retirement, all of these things. And then you put in approximately how much money you need to save for each of those goals and when you want to achieve those goals. And then there's financial calculators online where you can just put in these numbers, and then it will literally spit out, okay, based on these goals, you will need to save XYZ amount in order to achieve all of these goals every single month and year.
Okay, gotcha. And so with these, you just mentioned tools. I have to assume that there are a number of tools for doing that in particular, but also, is there like a day-to-day expense tracking tool that makes this easy so I don't have to like write down receipts at the end of every day? Because that won't be sustainable for me.
So for me, I don't use anything that fancy, to be honest. I don't use like a specific online tool. What I use is Google Sheets, where I just track like the basic expenses. But at the end of the day, when it comes to budgeting, you never want to be, as you said, like inputting expenses, right? Because that is really not a great use of time, because there are much better things that we could be doing, right? Like building our businesses and making income and, experiencing life. And so what I always want to do when it comes to budgeting is to budget beforehand and automate my savings. So if I'm putting away, let's say, that magic number of $1,000 every single month, that means any other money in my bank account can be used for spending. So as long as I spend within that amount, then I'm good.
So you don't really care which categories that those monies go towards. It's just as long as you're hitting that magic number, why log it all?
Yeah. There is some like conscious things that I do beforehand. Like before I go to Southeast Asia, I have like my rent planned and like approximate budget for food and stuff like that. So when I'm in Southeast Asia, I have an idea of how much to spend, but I'm definitely not like tracking like every line item to be like, oh no, I went like $20 over my food budget.
Do you have like a general idea of how much somebody would need to save before becoming a digital nomad? Say it might be a difficult question, so maybe I'll narrow it down a little bit. Say they want to give it like a 6-month experiment. They're going to keep their place at home. How would they go about figuring out how much money they need to save in order to just dip their toes in the water as a digital nomad?
So it really depends, as you probably can tell, as to what would work for someone versus someone else. For me, I was someone who is on the extreme end of like someone who is like super risk adverse, which is probably what I don't recommend. I was like, I need to have $100,000 investment portfolio. My business needs to be making multiple 6 figures and like all of these like very big goals that were super unnecessary. And that's the reason, part of the reason why it took me so long in order to even become a digital nomad, because I was like, oh, I'm not safe and I can't do this until until I have all of these goals. But for when it comes to testing whether you can become a digital nomad or what to have in place, you just really want to have your basic necessities. So you just want to make sure that you are safe. So that could mean different things for someone else. So for some people, like 3 months of monthly expenses is going to be enough for them and they're going to be safe. And then for other people, like 6 months of expenses is going to be good for them. So you just really have to be self-aware on yourself as to what, if based on your specific financial situation, what would work best for you and what would make you feel safe. And not to do what I did, which is to like overcompensate.
Yeah, I kind of did that when I went off on my own. I was just overly cautious. Like, I have to save this amount of money. I have to have like this percentage of my income backfilled from when I was a full-time employee. And then I just blew up everything within like 1 month of that. I'm like, oh, okay, all my products changed. My finances are totally different. Everything that I planned is now way up in the air, and I have no idea where the fuck it's gonna land. So yeah, it's gonna be really unique to everyone's situation. This is a little bit of a trick question.
I was talking to one of my friends who's a digital nomad, and her criteria was just making $5,000 within her business. She was like, if I can make $5,000 within my business, then that means I'm A-okay to become a digital nomad. And I'm like, oh my God, really?
I had the nerve to be able to just set a number like that and call it quits.
Yeah. And she was like, yeah, because if I can make $5,000, then I can make more money. And she had like, a $20,000 emergency fund, and with just those things, she was like, yep, I'm good to go. And that worked for her.
Let's get into a topic that confuses a lot of people, including myself. And we haven't had anybody on the show that can really talk in an educated way about this topic, and that is taxes. So let me outline a couple questions for you that I have that's hopefully representative of what the audience is thinking. The first question is, are there tax implications for becoming a digital nomad?
The thing about taxes is it's very tricky because it's very country dependent. So I'm from Canada. What is going to apply to Canadians is going to look very different from every single country. Like every country has their own specific tax laws.
Fair.
Essentially, how it works for Canadians, at least, is that our taxes is based on residency. So it's based on where we are currently living or spending most of our time. And the thing is that if we are spending most of our time in Canada, but we're spending just like a few months abroad, then we're still going to be taxed based on the Canadian tax laws. But then if you were to spend more than a certain amount of days abroad, then you would have to change your residency to become a non-resident, and then you would have to be taxed differently depending on where you are and your specific situation. So this is a little bit of a tricky question for me to answer because
too many variables.
There are so many people. I'm sure your listeners are from so many different countries.
Primarily North American audience, I think about 75 to 80%, the vast majority in the US. And I actually do know the US to some degree. I know if you're working for a company based out of the US and you have a resident, you actually have a home that you live in, a mailing address, you just travel around as a tourist and you pay your taxes in US taxes, unless you become a resident somewhere else. Like say, for example, I'm a resident in the United States and then I also decide to become a resident in Colombia. Colombia's going to want their fair shake, as well as the United States in a lot of cases too. But when you're working for a company, if you've got that home address, I did this for years, just travel around as a tourist, not as you're working within the country. Just say when you get to the border, where, what is your purpose of visit? Say tourism. Then you're just claiming taxes in your own home country. And then it kind of depends on the company, their own discretion on whether or not they want people traveling around the world. But for me, there was no real tax implications for that. But like Michael said, look it up for where you're coming from, because it's a bit of a tricky question, because where you're coming from can have a lot of implications and how long you stay. And also if you become a full-time digital nomad, that's another complication too. You still have a home address in Canada, right? So
yeah,
you're a resident. And that would change for some people if you become full-time traveling, I have to imagine.
Yeah. I would say in the beginning, just for like ease, it's just easier to stay as like a resident and just to keep everything the same, because you might not even know if you want to become a digital nomad for the long term. Like you haven't done it yet, so you might not even like it. So I would just say keep things simple in the beginning, just like in terms of taxes. But in the future, especially if you're making a lot of money, there are so many amazing ways to save on taxes by changing your residency and like living somewhere else that is more favorable to taxes. You see all of the millionaires and the billionaires have like different residencies in like Panama or like, random, or like in Switzerland and those places, because there's a lot of tax benefits that they get just from changing their residency to those specific countries. I'm not an expert in this, but I just know that this is how rich people keep more of their money.
Yeah, we always wonder about that. And I didn't really get it until I was a digital nomad, and then I started looking into incorporating, and then there's murmurs from my CPA. It's like, oh well, if you incorporate here, you can get an insane tax benefit. I'm like, okay, now I see how they're doing these kind of things. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And so when you're to that point, when you're making multiple six figures in your business or at your job, then this is when you can hire not me, because I'm not a tax CPA. I'm just a general CPA, but you can hire a specific tax CPA or tax consultant that specializes in international tax law. And then you can hire them so that they could make sure that you're doing everything the right way, so you're not breaking any laws.
Right. Yeah, you don't want that knock on the door, for sure. Okay, let's switch gears into investment. So maybe it sounds like an area that you spend a lot of your energy and where you put a lot of your thoughts. How can digital nomads invest wisely to secure their financial future, considering the unique aspects of this lifestyle and how costs can be so variable? As digital nomads, we were talking before, like your costs in Vietnam going to be very, very different than your cost of living in Mexico or Western Europe and that kind of things. So yeah, just talk to me in general about investment with that in mind.
Yeah, so when it comes to investing, a lot of people see it as, like which stocks do I buy? And like, all of these, when is the best time to buy? But my idea of investing is that investing is really just a skill. For example, a skill like swimming. If you were to jump into a middle of the ocean and you have no idea how to swim, That's pretty risky. But if you were to be an expert swimmer and you jump in the middle of the ocean, then that's not risky at all. And so investing is the exact same way. Investing is a skill just like swimming, and if you are a beginner, you're going to get beginner results. And if you spend time to learn about investing, learn the foundations, why are you investing and how can you invest and improve your skill level as an investor, then you're going to make more money when it comes to investing.
So where would somebody start? Say, just like me, I've got zero skill, zero knowledge in the area. I don't even know where to start.
So if you don't know where to start, I would just start with the first thing is your mindset when it comes to investing. A lot of people don't learn about investing and don't try to invest their money because of their mindset. They think, oh, investing is risky, or investing is only for rich people, or investing is just not for someone like me. These are some of the thoughts that a lot of my clients come to me when they first start with investing. And these are the thoughts that are actually preventing you from opening up a YouTube video and learning about investing or reading a blog about investing. When it comes to information about investing, we're so lucky these days where information is everywhere online. And you can literally learn anything online these days. You can learn about budgeting, investing, you can learn about taxes, or you could learn about science, physics. You can learn literally anything online. But the reason why you haven't done it yet is because of the mindset that's in your mind that you're like, oh, I can't do this, or oh, this is too risky, I'm going to lose all my money.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of just push past that. And so what would you recommend for me? I do have that mindset that resonates really well with me. Would you recommend that I just dip my toes in the water, just open up a YouTube video and start to learn the very first thing and then just start moving from there?
Yeah, I would. When it comes to anything, you're going to be scared. For example, if you never swam before, it's going to be pretty fucking scary to jump into that ocean and jump into that water. But you have to dip your toes in first, and then, okay, your toes are fine, then you can go like waist in, and then, okay, maybe you can learn about some like basic swimming strokes, get started there, or like not go into the deep end, but just stay in the shallow end. So you can slowly start to learn about investing that way. So when it comes to how I would start about learning about investing, you could use YouTube or like any blog, personal finance blog and stuff like that. And you first want to learn the foundations of investing. Like, how do markets work? Or why are you investing in the first place? Like, learn about the basics of investing. And then once you feel a little bit comfortable there, then you can start to choose a very simple and easy and low risk investing strategy. Do the low risk and easy investing strategy first. Once you get comfortable there, then you can expand, and once you learn more about investing, then you can try out different investing strategies that might be a little bit more advanced and harder to do, but it might give you greater returns at the same time.
Do you have any examples of low risk investing strategies versus high risk investing strategies?
Yeah. So I currently use two different investing strategies. I have a passive investing strategy as well as an active investing strategy. My passive investing strategy is the more easier one and is where I get most of my clients and most people to get started with. Passive investing is when you invest into the entire stock market. So you would buy an investment product called an exchange traded fund, also known as ETF. And with this product, it invests in, let's say, the entire US stock market. So there's a S&P 500, I'm sure you've heard of that, where it's the top 500 largest US companies. So one of the risks of buying one stock, let's say you spend $10,000 to buy all of your shares of Apple. The risk of that is that if Apple goes down and Apple goes bankrupt, then you're going to lose all of your money. Right. So that's the risk of just buying one stock. The benefit of buying the entire stock market is that if you buy this one ETF, you are now invested in all 500 of those US companies. So unless like the US like goes kaput, like it disappears off the map of the earth, which it won't, then you're going to still have money because your ETF will never reach down to the value of 0.
Got it. Okay. So then what would be a counter example to that where a newbie should not get started?
So the active investing strategy that I use is called stock options trading. This is an advanced investing strategy that I hired an investing coach. So I spent like $6,000 to hire an investing coach in order to learn this strategy. And this is essentially where you are buying an individual stock, so which is, kind of risky. And instead of just one individual stock, you actually have to buy 100 shares of those individual stocks. So you're playing with a lot more money. And let's say if the stock goes up, you make 10 times more of the money. But if the stock goes down, you're also losing 10 times more of the money as well. But at the same time, there is a skill level when it comes to stock options trading. I'm able to do the strategy pretty risk-free because I know what I'm doing. And I'm able to get a passive income of about 1 to 4% per month out of the amount that I invest.
Wow. I might have to sign up in your course. That's pretty great. Okay, so that would be on the advanced end of the spectrum and probably not a place for people to start. I see a lot of people still, it's not quite as hot as it was before when I first started traveling, but getting into crypto a lot. Is that an area where you would not recommend people start if they're just like looking into investing their money?
So crypto is, I would say, one investment. It's like one option, like one investment vehicle. And I would definitely not invest all of your money into one vehicle. Like you never want to put all of your eggs into one basket. Right. When it comes to crypto, I actually don't invest in crypto because I don't really see it as investing. I see it more as, I guess it's just for my expertise, it comes with, I come from a finance background. So I know how to read financial statements. I know how like financial markets work. And that's why investing comes really easy to me and I know how to invest. But when it comes to crypto, it's like a whole other ballgame. Cryptocurrency is like a currency and it's used for specific things. I don't understand or have the desire to learn all about that. So that's the reason why if I were to invest in crypto, I'll probably lose money. Going back to the beginner example, right? My skill level when it comes to crypto is pretty low. So unless I want to learn and improve my skill level when it comes to investing in crypto, then I should probably just stick with stocks because I'll make a lot more money that way.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you have any final recommendations for new or veteran digital nomads in your space when it comes to investing, taxes, any of the stuff that we talked about?
Yeah, I would just say that as a digital nomad, you want to be very aware of your finances. It's a lot easier as an employee and if you are, living at home for you to just be very simple with your personal finances. But being a digital nomad, and especially if you're an entrepreneurial digital nomad, it adds a lot more complexity to your personal finances. And so that's the reason why it's so important for you to be aware of how much money that you should be saving, like having that magic number so that you're still achieving your financial goals while you're still enjoying life and enjoying the lifestyle that you've created for yourself. And I guarantee that you will really thank yourself and you will be a lot happier when you are clear with your personal finances. Like you're like, okay, I know that I'm saving $1,000 every single month and this is going to achieve my future goals. So now I can even enjoy more of my life today and live more in the moment rather than worrying about your finances.
It's been really helpful, Michael. And surprisingly less complex than I had it in my head. Not to downplay what you do in any sense, because I know it's very complex, but you're able to explain these things in a way that it even clicked with me. So I'm sure it helped with the audience quite a bit. So yeah, in wrapping up, what are your travel plans for the year? What else you got on the schedule? You got Singapore and then Vietnam, I heard, and then what else?
Yeah, I'm so excited for this year. I've never been to Southeast Asia, so doing next week, February 12th, I'm going to Singapore just for a few days to meet up with some friends. It's too expensive for me to stay very long. Then I'll do Vietnam for about 1 to 2 months. Then Thailand. Then I'll probably do Bali. We'll see. I might do Bali for a month or two, and then I'm coming home for the summer because Toronto's pretty nice in the summer. And then I think Mexico is calling me back, so I might be heading back to Mexico.
It's always calling me. I totally understand. And make sure to shoot us a note when you're in Bali. You may cross paths with Diego. I think he's heading there shortly, and he should be there for a few months as well. So thank you so much, Michael. Where can people find you if they're interested in learning more about you and what you do and the services that you're offering?
Amazing. You guys can find me on Instagram. I'm at Michael Lee Kim, Michael E. Kim. And I'm also on YouTube. So you can also check out my YouTube channel. It's also the same handle, Michael Lee Kim. I think I'll give you guys the links to all of my contacts so you guys can reach me over there.
Perfect. We will share that all in the show notes. Michael, this has been an awesome chat. Thank you so much. This has been years overdue talking about this. We have not had an expert. We've been looking for an expert, and me and Marisa and Diego have just been making things up as we go. So it's really good to have a chat with you and get these super insightful tips for everybody. So thank you everybody for joining, and we will see you again next week.